York and New Jersey, and welcome to this week's edition of the Papa Report, the show dedicated to educating and empowering you to make better decisions with your hard-earned money. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have John Papa. He is the president of DPS Advisors based right here in New Jersey, and insurance representative Luke Papa. John and Luke, we always have such a great time together. It's great to be back with both of you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kristen. How are you?
Well.
Good. You're doing well too, Luke?
Yeah.
Well, we've had a good laugh because the last time you both were on the show, I somehow combined your names and it came out Juke. We have Juke with here, right? John and Luke together.
I've been called a lot of things, Kristen. Juke was never one of them.
That was a first, right? But it's so great to be back with both of you. And I know you've put together another fabulous show for our viewers at home. The title of today's show is Taxation in Retirement. Are you ready for it? The reality is that a lot of folks think that they'll have a lower tax bill in retirement. That is not always the case. And unfortunately for a lot of folks, it's a really rude wake-up call. So we want you to be prepared. It's so important to know what your potential tax bill might be and then take steps even now, no matter where you are on your retirement journey, to lowering that tax bill. And I'm really excited because you're going to be sharing a really powerful real-world example of folks that you've helped navigate through this today. So I can't wait to get to that. But before we dive in, I think it's really important to clarify right up front the difference between tax preparation, which most folks are familiar with, and engaging in strategic tax planning, which is what you all do. So talk about that difference.
Right, Kristen. So most people that come into our office, they're seeing their accountant one time a year, and they give them their receipts and their W-2s and 1099s, and the accountant does their taxes. And that's it. That's the last time they see them until next year, next January, February, to meet them again or her again and do their tax return. And that's all they're doing. That is tax preparation, really.
Right. Yep.
What we like to introduce our clients to is tax planning, because it's really important, because the most assets that people have today are in their 401k, 403b, IRA, their tax deferred qualified accounts, right? Yep. They've been told that all these years you're going to get a current year tax deduction. No one's ever mentioned anything about what the taxes are going to be later on. And think about this for a second. If you went into that 401k meeting 30 years ago and they said to you, we want you to save money and you're going to get a current year tax deduction for that. But when you need the money 30, 40 years later on when you're ready to retire, we don't know what the tax brackets are going to be when you have to take the money out. Are you going to want to do that planning when you don't know what the costs are going to be coming out? Right. So introducing tax planning to a client is very important to people when they are about to retire, or it should be done before they're retired. You don't want to don't want to wait till the end. You want to do it as early as possible.
Right. The sooner the better you can get started on the tax planning process, the better. And John, to your point, I think it's important to just kind of spell that out again. When these things were created, the 401k, the traditional IRA, we were all told that this was a really good thing for us because, to your point, you get the tax break today when you put the money in. Supposedly, in retirement, we were all supposed to be in a lower tax bracket and paying less. But talk about where we are at this time in history and why that is not happening.
Well, let's think about that, Kristen. Where are we right now in our economy, right? Our country it just crossed over and is almost halfway to the next stage, $34 trillion in debt, right? Our country, our government doesn't make anything. Right. Our government can only collect tax revenue, right? And typically we've been seeing our government collects in about $5.7 trillion a year in tax revenue from U.S. citizens, and they spend $7 or $8 trillion and is always running at a deficit of $2.5 to $3 trillion. So if the deficit is going to be increasing like it's increasing now, where are tax rates going to go? We are in the lowest tax environment we're going to be in our lifetimes, because the government only has one way to go. They can only tax people to pay down this debt, to pay for our military, to pay for our social programs, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. Where are they going to go? Tax rates are going to have to go up. So you thought this whole life that you were going to save money and be in a lower tax bracket later. You're not. Tax rates are going to be way higher. People are in higher tax brackets than when they retire.
This is why this is such an important conversation to have. Well, Luke, I want to bring you into the mix now and just help folks understand. I think a lot of people, enter retirement with three types of accounts typically. So we've got, taxable accounts, tax deferred accounts, and tax-free accounts. Let's start first with those taxable accounts. What all is included in that bucket of money that folks have usually accumulated?
Sure, Kristen. These accounts are the type that when you earn interest, you have to pay taxes on that interest in that year. These accounts include checking and savings accounts, CDs, money markets, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds that aren't in retirement accounts.
So they have the taxable bucket, which, a lot of people are very familiar with that, right? Typically in a brokerage account or, like you said, bank CDs, things of that nature.
Right. And if in a brokerage account, if they have a stock that pays a dividend, they're going to pay capital gains tax on that as well. So that you pay taxes the year you receive it. That's the taxable bucket.
Right. Well, the next step, the next type, this is a big one. This is the one that the majority of Americans have the bulk of their wealth saved up in, these tax-deferred accounts, also known as qualified accounts.
Right, which are your 401k, 403b, 457, IRA, all the things that you get a current year tax deduction for, the money grows tax deferred. And I'll say that again, it grows tax deferred, not tax free. So you're going to pay the tax at a later date, not knowing where the taxes rates are going to be at that time. So, Kristen, we just talked about the government, our federal deficit is in almost $35 trillion. There are between 401ks and IRAs close to $20 trillion in assets that have never been taxed.
Right.
So a person thinks they have $1 million in their IRA, that it's all theirs to have $1 million. No, you don't. If you're in a 30% tax bracket or even higher in the next 5 to 10 years, think about that. Your $1 million, 300 to 400,000 is going to the IRS, and you're getting $600 or $700 $1,000 in your own pocket. You have a partner. No one's ever been told that. They have a bullseye on their back, right? That's the tax-deferred qualified bucket.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to really talk about that. I think a lot of folks for years have thought, oh, if I have $1 million saved up, I'm going to be okay, right? That used to be kind of the magic number that people would aspire to. Well, if you have $1 million saved up, guess what? You don't get to keep all of that. To your point, gosh, maybe you have 600, 700,000 of that $1 million, because Uncle Sam has his hand in the other piece. So
if you're thinking about creating an income stream, right? You have $1 million in your 401k and you're going to retire. You want to draw out $40,000 a year out of that thing. Well, take a third out for taxes, so you're really going to net $28,000. You're not going to get $40,000. You're netting 28. So how's that going to work into your retirement income plan, right?
Right. Well, we've touched on the taxable accounts. We've touched on the tax deferred accounts. What's the final third bucket?
The final one is what the nirvana of investing, right? It's the tax-free bucket, right? And we want to have all of our money in a tax-free bucket, right? So that is going to include your Roth IRA, municipal bonds, and life insurance falls into that tax-free bucket too, because when a death benefit gets paid out in a life insurance policy, you don't pay any taxes on the death benefit that's paid to the beneficiaries. So the nirvana of investing, Kristen, is basically trying to show clients using tax planning strategies how we can get that taxable bullseye that you have in the 401k into the tax-free bucket in a Roth IRA strategy. And we're going to go over that in the next 2 segments of the show. We're going to have a great example of a real life case that we worked on that we're so excited about. People are not doing this kind of work.
Right.
And CPAs and accountants are not recommending it because they're only focused and brainwashed onto thinking, how can I lower our taxes for this current year?
Right, from this past
year.
They're looking
fault.
behind.
It's our fault, right? It's our fault because we're telling the accountant, I want to pay as much taxes this year.
Right.
I want to pay the least amount of taxes this year.
That's what we've been told we should do.
That's so short-sighted, Kristen. You need to look at the big picture.
Yes.
What's it going to be like for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years of your life? Or if you pass on those assets down to your kids, what's going to be like that? Tax planning is going to help in that. And we have a great real-life example that we're going to go over in the next 2 segments.
For sure.
So ladies and gentlemen, if you're sitting out there thinking, we have this IRA 401k that has a really lot of money in it, and you don't know what your tax bracket you're going to be in retirement, then you need to get a copy of a customized version of your Diversified Planning Strategies report. It's a complimentary written financial plan that's going to get you on the road to that stress-free retirement. It's going to show you what the taxes you're going to pay in retirement on those 401ks and IRAs. All you have to do is get a date on the calendar, you dial the number on your screen or scan the QR code. We'll get you your version of the customized DPS report that's going to make you on that stress-free retirement road.
Wonderful. John, Luke, thank you so much. So much more to get into. But again, if you would like to claim your complimentary written financial plan, again, as part of that, John and the team can walk you through how you can create greater tax efficiency throughout your full financial plan for retirement and potentially lower your tax bill in retirement. So we encourage you to get that. All you have to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 844-534-4452. Or if you'd rather not talk to someone right now, but you do have your smartphone handy, if you simply pull pull it out and open up that camera app. You can point, click, and scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary visit that way as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, John and Luke are going to share a real-life client story of how they were able to help someone save on hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxes in retirement. You don't want to miss it. We'll be back right after this.
My dad started his firm with his dad 36 years ago, and they've grown it into what it is today. Seeing them work together, when I was younger, I would used to think like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. You know, when I'm older, working with my dad. But it was, as I got older and saw them, I truly realized I had a great relationship at work, and it worked for their clients, it worked for them. I mean, to have him as a mentor is so crucial because I learned so much every day.
A lot of guys that are in this field are like, think I'm crazy by giving out my cell number to everybody. And I'm like, how could you not? If you're taking on someone's financial life, they need to get in touch with you. You should have my cell number.
Come in for one meeting and just have a conversation. It doesn't need to be that long if you don't want it to be. Like I said, we got that lounge area. Just have a nice conversation. All it'll cost you is time.
Don't be afraid to come in, right? You take that first step. It's going to be a stress-free environment. We run a family-run practice. We're going to just talk about what's going on in your life. We're going to see if we can work together.
Well, welcome back. You're watching the Papa Report, brought to you by the team of DPS Advisors. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both John and Luke Papa. We are having a very important conversation today all about lowering your tax bill in retirement. It is so important to be prepared. In the last segment, we talked about the different types of accounts that folks typically enter retirement with. And it's all about creating greater tax efficiency throughout your full financial plan. I know you have a real life example, and we're going to talk about some real tools for tax control, if you will, that you can even implement at home watching today. And so we're going to do this case study. But again, John, just re-presence for our viewers why this is so timely, where we are in tax history.
Right. Kristen, it's so important right now because where our country is in debt, that we're in $35 trillion, increasing by $2 to $3 trillion a year. I mean, I heard a stat, I think in 5 years, the interest on our debt is going to be $1 trillion, right? So the only way the government is going to try and tackle that problem is to increase taxes. So we talk to CPAs and accountants all the time, tax lawyers. Nobody is not disagreeing that we're going to be in a higher tax bracket environment in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Well, because the current tax code is set to sunset. Talk about that, because we have this window of time right now.
The Trump tax code is set to sunset at the end of 2025. Now, again, not getting political. We don't want to be political on the show, but whoever's going to be in office at that time, the tax rates are going to change, right? They're going to have to. We have to tackle this debt at some point in our lives, or we're going to bankrupt our country and our kids and our grandkids. So tax rates are going to have to go up. Our government doesn't make anything. They have to raise revenue, and that's through taxes. So having this qualified plan is a problem. And
so let's get into this case study. And again, this is a really good illustration of the fact that the majority of Americans have the bulk of their wealth saved up in tax-deferred accounts, things like your 401k, your 403b, traditional IRAs, which means that the tax bill is coming, yet there's strategies that you all are able to employ for your clients to help them go ahead and proactively lower that tax bill. So, Luke, I understand that there's an example of some clients that you've worked with, and I'm excited for you to share this with our viewers.
We're going to give you a real-life client example. In this scenario, we'll call them Joe and Carol, both age 65 and in decent health. Joe has an IRA worth $500,000, and he reinvests. He will only withdraw his required amount each year when he hits 73. They're conservative investors and expect to earn a 6% rate of return over time. Any money that they have left over, they'll leave to their children.
Okay, so the goal is they want to make sure that they have enough to get them through retirement, right? But they also want to be able to leave and pass on
whatever's going to be left over. They're not going to, not live their life in retirement. But if there's any money left over, we're gonna they're going to pay it on down to their kids. So first question we asked was, okay, what does your accountant advise you in doing? They're like, well, just hang out, invest, stay the course, and at 73 years old, we're going to start taking our required minimum distributions. I'm like, okay, no conversation at all on tax planning. They're like, no, we thought that it was the tax plan. I'm like, okay, so let's do an analysis, right? Like the way we analyze your investments, we're going to analyze the taxes on your qualified plan. So it's pretty simple. We have an Excel spreadsheet that can determine $500,000 at age 65. It's going to grow for the next 8 years at 6%. It's going to grow to a nice pot of money. And then you're going to start this strategy of taking out your RMDs at 73 years old. So we calculated the chart, goes it all the way out, and I assumed at age 90, because statistics show that at least one spouse will live in their 90s. If you make it to age 65, there's an 85% chance that happens. So if you pass on at 90, Joe and Carol's distributions would have totaled $908,000 in those RMDs.
Okay, so that's how much they would have had to pay out.
That's how much they would have taken out of that IRA and paid taxes on. And let's say they're in a 25% tax bracket. They would have paid $227,000 to the IRS on all of those distributions. Now, there's still $716,000 left in that IRA that's going to go to their kids and grandkids.
Right.
They don't get it tax-free. They now have to pay taxes.
Within 10 years.
Within 10 years, Kristen. They used to be able to spread it out over their lifetime.
Right.
Now you have to take it out within 10 years. So let's assume it's getting added to their income now, too, because they're younger, they're working. So they inherit this IRA. They have to take distributions out. So let's say they're in a 30% tax bracket over their distributions of this inherited IRA.
Right.
They're going to receive this, $716,000, and they're going to pay $250,000 in taxes on the inherited IRA. So this family who had $500,000 sitting in an IRA, who was told by their CPA, just stay the course, reinvest at 73, take the distributions out, you'll be in a low tax bracket, and that's your plan, are going to pay combined almost $500,000 in income taxes on an IRA at 65 was $500,000. Right. It's almost, it's not really a 100% tax bracket, but they're paying as much as what their IRA started at 65. So my question to them was, that's your plan? And they're like looking at me again like I'm from Mars. Like, well, what do you mean? Are there other alternatives?
Is there another option? A lot of folks don't realize that there are options, right?
So ladies and gentlemen, if you're sitting out there thinking, that's us, Joe and Carol's us, then we have a solution for you that we're going to go over in the next segment that's going to be really eye-popping. It's what we do every day. We work with clients to do tax planning. It's so important if you're in retirement or getting close to retirement or you have time before you're 73 years old. The earlier you can start, the better. But we're going to show you the results. They're unbelievable. So if you're sitting out there thinking, wow, we need to get a plan, a tax planning strategy, then you need to dial the number on your screen or scan the QR code and get your copy of the customized version of the DPS report. It's a complimentary written financial plan that's going to discuss the taxes that you're going to pay on your IRA or 401k. It's going to get you on that road to a stress-free retirement. We're going to educate and empower you so you can make better decisions with your hard-earned money.
John, Luke, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear the solution to the story. I know it's a good one, and we're excited for you to hear it as well. But in the meantime, there's never been a better time for you to start your own tax planning and tax saving journey. To do so, all you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 844-534-4452. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. Don't go anywhere. John and Luke are going to share the resolution and the solution they were able to provide for Joe and Carol right after this.
Have you considered refinancing your retirement? When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your homes, your car loans, and even your credit card rates because it could help you keep more of your own money each month. When interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement.
Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities that you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rates may not work for you during a high interest rate environment. So find out if a retirement refi could work better for you. Don't look down at today's higher interest rates. Consider refinancing your retirement. Call the number you see here or scan the QR code below to schedule your complimentary Refi Your Retirement review today.
Well, welcome back to the Papa Report. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both John and Luke Papa. We are talking today all about lowering your tax bill in retirement. And before we share the resolution and the solution of what you all were able to do for this client example that we've been talking about today, I do think it's important to help folks understand what are some of the other negative side effects of not paying attention to your tax bill in retirement.
Right, Kristen, that's a great question. It's something that most people aren't even aware of, right? So if you're taking this taxable income in retirement, you're probably also receiving your Social Security benefit. You're paying premiums for Medicare, right? And the more taxable income you have, the greater effect it's going to have on those other things you're paying for. It's going to cause you possibly to pay taxes on your Social Security.
Yeah, and it can be up to 85%.
It can be up to 85% of taxes on your Social Security, where if you're in a 30% tax bracket, tax rates are going up, your Social Security is now getting taxed, right? It's going to also possibly cause you to pay more for your Medicare premiums, because the higher income you report and pay taxes on, that's what determines what you pay for Medicare, right? So it has a devastating effect on this income that you've received that's taxable in these tax-deferred accounts. CPAs and accountants are not talking to anybody about it.
And a lot of people in the financial services industry aren't talking about it either, because at a lot of the corporate big box firms, they're not allowed to. Right?
No, yeah, they're not allowed to talk about it because they're not licensed fiduciaries. They have no strategy in place to help anybody. Right. All they're doing is basically doing years of old investment advice. That's all they're doing. They have no solutions, no options, and that's what clients, when they come in, they're looking for options. They're looking to get educated, looking to get empowered so they can make better decisions with their hard-earned money. We stick by that motto every time we meet with clients, Kristen.
And I love that, and I know how passionate you both are about that. So let's get to solutions now,
all right?
So just represents where Joe and Carol were and what they were facing.
Right. So Joe and Carol, a 65-year-old couple, came in to meet with us, and they were going to basically just let their IRA grow. They had $500,000 in an IRA. They were going to let it grow to 73, take the required minimum distributions, pay tax on it, reinvest the money, because they didn't really need the money. They had a pension, so they didn't really need the money. And whatever was left for them, what was left over, they were going to pass on down to their kids. And I showed them that if they follow that strategy that's recommended by their CPA, they're going to pay $500,000 in taxes, right? So I said to them, let's do some tax planning. Let's talk about a Roth conversion. It's been around for a really long time, but not a lot of people take advantage of it. And the earlier you are, the younger you are in your retirement phase, the better off you're going to be, because you have time to do the conversion before the required minimum distributions kick in. Because you want to do it before that happens. So let's take a look at it. So what we recommended was, and we set them up on a distribution plan, right, of converting $67,900 per year for 10 years into a Roth IRA. Now, they have to pay taxes on the conversion, right? So they're in a 25% tax bracket, because we've been in these tax rates for a while now, and they're paying 25%. So now they're going to pay $169,000 in income taxes. They're going to move all of that Roth IRA into, the regular IRA into a Roth IRA that is now tax-free forever. Tax-free growth to Joe and Carol. Tax-free income to Joe and Carol. Tax-free income to their kids and grandkids.
To the beneficiaries, because there's no RMDs with the Roth either.
There's no RMDs. Everything is tax-free. You now just eliminated the worry of having to pay taxes at a higher tax bracket later on in life. And what does it also do? It eliminates having to report income to possibly make your Social Security taxed. It eliminates the possibility of paying higher Medicare premiums. All the different things that you might have to do if you don't do a Roth conversion strategy. So let's look at the results, right? So the client now only pays $169,000 in taxes, and that's all that's due forever. So we went from paying $500,000 in taxes to now only paying $169,000, right? So we're saving like $320,000 in income taxes for the Joe and Carol and their family. It's crazy. But that's not even the best part of this plan.
Which Kristen, already that sounds pretty darn
really
good,
right? Which is really good. And their accountant didn't even tell them to do something like this, right? The best part about this plan, Kristen, is now that net number of $50,900 that they have after taxes on the Roth conversion, they want to invest it. They don't need the money. They're going to invest it, and they're going to get that same 6% return. When they pass on at 90, that account will grow to $1.8 million. They don't have any RMDs due, so they don't have to take any money out if they don't need it. They could take it out and take tax-free income. It won't affect their Social Security, nothing, right? But they didn't need the money. So I sat there and said to them, you're now going to pass on $1.8 million of tax-free dollars to your kids and grandkids. Rather than in your way, with your accountant recommendation, you're going to pass on $716,000 of taxable money when they're in their probably prime earning years.
Which is going to bump them into a higher tax bracket.
So we said you're going to pay $500,000 in taxes, probably going to pay more than that for the overall family. So that solution was a strategic, we call it our strategic Roth IRA conversion solution, and we introduced it to everybody. Now listen, It's not right for everybody, right? If you need your IRA to live on, well, then maybe a Roth conversion's not really the way to go because you need the IRA to live on. And so there's some other things that we can do there if we're looking to just pass on assets, maybe tax-free life insurance is an option as well. So there's a lot of different things, different tools that we can use for the client. And my job as your licensed fiduciary is to say, here's all your options.
Yes.
Here are the pros and cons of these options.
Yep.
It's your call to make which one's best for you and your family. But just listening to a CPA that's basically a tax preparer that's not giving any tax advice at all, because I'll ask them a question. So you see them in February, March. Do you hear from them in June or July saying, hey, here's how we're going to make next year's taxes better or your future taxes better? Do you ever get that phone call? Like, nah, I never get that phone call. I go, that's a classic example of a tax preparer. That's all you're dealing with. We as licensed fiduciaries, we're going to act and introduce tax planning strategies into your retirement plan. And you should be doing it. These are all legal strategies. The government says you have to pay taxes.
Right.
They don't say you have to pay the most taxes.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize that the tax code was actually written to help people pay the least amount that they are legally required to pay. It's that most folks don't know the rules. They don't know how it works. And so you could unknowingly be paying more and not even realizing it.
Not any clue.
It's not like the IRS is going to be like, oh, you paid us too much.
We're going to send you a check back.
Right. It doesn't work that way.
Once you pay them the $500,000 on that IRA plan that you're going to pay the IRS, you're not getting that money back.
Right.
So they say you can pay what's the least amount of taxes legally, and these are all great strategies.
Absolutely.
It depends on what's right for you. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there, again, saying we have an IRA or a 401k that has a lot of money in it that we want to implement a tax saving strategy, then you need to dial a number on your screen or scan the QR code and get your version of the customized complementary diversified planning strategies report. It's written by a complimentary plan written by our team of certified financial planners and certified financial analysts. It's going to get you on the road to less taxes on your qualified plans, to better investment strategies from your investments if you have them, and it's going to get you on that road to a stress-free retirement. So we look forward to seeing you, and thank you, Kristen, for a great show today. With taxes are there, this is the tip of the iceberg. Come in and see us when you can.
For sure. John and Luke, thank you so much. And I'm so excited for more people like Joe and Carol to be able to get connected with you as a result of today's show so that you can begin working on lowering your tax bill and burden for retirement. Again, this might be new to you, but the good news is it's not new to the team of DPS advisors. This is what they do for folks day in and day out, and they would love to help and serve you. To claim your complimentary written financial plan, that number to call is 844-534-4452. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Papa Report, and we look forward to being back with you next time.